Welcome and thanks for joining us. I'm Brixton Diamond, co-founder and board chair of the Black House Foundation, coming to you from Los Angeles, California, the native land of the Tonga, Kiz, and Chumash people. Today, we are gathered for an incredibly powerful conversation about an incredibly powerful film, Descendant, by filmmaker Margaret Brown, who is joining us today, along with executive producer for the film, Amir Questlove Thompson, Kamal Siddiqui, who is the past president of the National Association of Black Scuba Divers, and film subject and Clotilda descendant, Joycelyn Davis. We're going to engage in a powerful discussion about the film. I think Joycelyn's coming. There she getting her. We're going to engage in a powerful discussion. There you are. Welcome to you all. Excited to have you. We're going to have an incredible conversation about a piece of history that has been long buried. And you all have come together to really bring to light and to bring to the surface without going to too many puns. I may want to start with you, our director, Margaret Brown. Congratulations on your film.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's start there and think about from the director's perspective and your engagement. Tell us how you came to this project and about your connection with the descendants of the Clotilda.
So 14 years ago, I made another film that premiered at Sundance called The Order of Myths, which is about segregated Mardi Gras in Mobile, Alabama, where I grew up. And the story revolved around, I started making the film just about Mardi Gras and how it was segregated in Mobile, but I had known from the past that the white Mardi Gras queen, her family, people said they brought the last slave ship to the United States. And then after Mardi Gras was over and we were filming with Stephanie Lucas, the Black Mardi Gras Queen's family, her grandfather said, actually, we were descended from that ship. So I found out in that moment that this powerful connection was between these two queens. And so I guess this film kind of started when we were making that 15 years ago. Wow. And I never thought I would make another film about this, but then when they were looking for the ship, I got people from Mobile started writing me on Facebook and saying, it's not really about that ship, like Joycelyn says in the movie. There's a community there. There's a whole other thing going on. You should come back. So I did.
That's amazing. And what surprised you most about this? So back home is where now? So you left Mobile and where are you?
Where it's home now?
Yes.
I live in between Austin and LA, although right now I'm in New York. We just finished this film a few days ago. So.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Real time. We're getting you real time. And premiered yesterday, right?
It premiered today, actually. Today was the world premiere. Yeah.
Losing my days. Congratulations on the world premiere.
I understand.
Yeah. So what surprised you most in making this journey back home and connecting with this story?
I mean, I was just, I guess just how, I don't know, it was such a meaningful journey. And, you know, as a white person, I don't know, I didn't think always I was maybe the best person to tell this story. And, you know, when I started it, I thought a lot more white people would speak to me because my other film is sort of, you know, Mobile, both sort of sides of this segregated festival. But then in this film, I guess after that movie, no one wanted to talk to me who was white. Only a few people did. So it really became about the descendants. And I guess that surprised me that I wasn't going to make the film I set out to make. But then the trust that was given to me to tell the story was just very humbling.
Wow. And so we're going to see a bit of a clip in a second, but I would love to ask you this question, thinking about sort of the beauty of the landscape, but also the horrors, because of so much industrial construction and presence and pollution that sort of rives through the town. Tell us a bit about the approach to juxtaposing those two things, but also paying tribute to what is beautiful.
Well, Africatown itself is very lush, and in the color, in the color sessions and talking to the cinematographers, Zach Manuel and Justin Zweifach, we were always talking about the color green and how we wanted it to look like a place that was just so beautiful and rich. And but then, you know, the reveal in the film when the camera goes up and you see the industry, the gray that surrounds the community, you're like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the gray hemming in the green, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, but we thought about that a lot when we were filming.
That's incredible. So we're going to come back to some more details on the actual filming and grab other people for this conversation. But I'd love for folks in our audience to see a bit of the film. So let's play a clip and give us all a little context if we weren't able to be there this morning.
We've never had the opportunity to embrace our history. It's never been valued.
So we got just audio.
And so
maybe we can stop and start again.
This is the first.
Sorry about that. We talk about the lushness and the beauty, and then we only get audio.
You have to imagine it now.
Right, close your eyes.
It's very green, I promise.
It's very green. But you know, you're hearing those voices, which I think are so powerful throughout the film. And so you talked about the fact that the white residents of Mobile wouldn't talk to you. As we dive in a little more, can you talk about your ability to connect with the descendants of the Clotilda, but also Africa Town overall?
I mean, I don't know, Joycelyn, maybe you want to speak to that, but I just kind of didn't go away, did I? Like, I just sort of, I kept coming back for 4 years. So, you know, I think a lot of like, after there were these moments when I feel like a lot of press would come in from all over the world, both times, once when the ship was actually found, and then, you know, when they thought it was the ship, it didn't turn out to be the ship. But then, you know, I'm from Mobile. I really cared about this story. I just kind of stayed and I kept filming.
How many years? How long did it take?
4 years. Yeah.
4 years. That's amazing. And we Joycelyn, we talked about she wouldn't go away. Can you tell us a bit more about sort of your perspective for it's sort of a mystery and a crime investigation, right? There are all sorts of things. Can you tell us a bit about how the film came to be a part of the journey that you all were on with the connection with your fellow descendants?
Wow, this has been an amazing journey, and I think that we've just started. I didn't think of Margaret, you know, I didn't want to say, oh, just go away. She was more like she's more of a friend than a filmmaker. You know, we would go out to dinner and we would just talk. So it wasn't always just, you know, let's film. She would call and just, you know, we would talk about other things. So this journey with the story is amazing. I'm just ecstatic that it has made it this far. I've grown up with this story. I've lived this story. I worship at the church that our ancestors founded. I live in the area that our ancestors founded. I attended the school that our ancestors founded. So I've always been wanting to embrace the history, but somewhat ashamed to do it. But now, you know, since I'm older and wiser, that I can embrace this, and this has been truly amazing.
You talk a bit about the shame that kept you away from the story and from the connection.
Well, just the story in itself. You know, our ancestors' villages were raided. And then it was in a newspaper article that there was a brisk sale of enslaved Africans in the kingdom of Dahomey. And Timothy Mayer, along with his brothers and some business partners, were out sitting at the Roger B. Taney, which is like a tugboat, you know, just talking. And Timothy Mayer was like, well, you know, I'll make a wager or a bet that I can do this without being caught. So, you know, how my ancestors arrived on American soil is somewhat shameful. I say that now. I mean, that was how I felt before. But now I think about what they did when they got here, right? 5 years, they built a church. They started a church, built a school, and formed a community. These were young people. The ages ranged from 2 to 25. So these were, you know, children, young adults. So they didn't come here with a slavery mentality. They hit the ground running when they got here. So that makes me not ashamed of what is, you know, it's what they did when they got here.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I want to turn to Amir Questlove. Welcome.
Hey, welcome. How you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Glad to have you, and congratulations to you as well as Joycelyn, Margaret, and Kamal. Would love to hear about your heritage and how this connection to Clotilda came into your consciousness.
Well, the fastest story of this version is I was approached by the good people of Finding Your Roots. Henry Louis Gates, or as we affectionately call him, Skip Gates, approached us, I believe, around 2014 or 2015 about me appearing on the show. And of course, the nature of the show is that for the first time, a lot of African Americans can finally trace their heritage in ways that they didn't know. Now, normally, of course, at that point, haven't been on the air for 5 years, and the results are mostly just like, okay, well, you came from the west part of Africa, or they might have, some slaves weren't allowed to even have names. They would just have numbers and whatnot. So it'd be like slave 42 or that sort of thing. My situation was a little different, though. For starters, it took them like 2.5 years to finally come up with the results of when we would do a follow-up show, which I felt was really weird. But we found out that, we kept hearing that there might be a possible breakthrough. And I couldn't imagine what the breakthrough was. At the most, I was just hoping to find out like what state my ancestors were enslaved in, because I was just under the impression that there's no African American that can actually trace their lineage or their history back to a specific place in Africa. I mean, hence why we call each other Black, instead of Ethiopian or Zambian or wherever we come from. And cut to, I believe, 2016, 2017, I'm on the show. And with the exception of comedian Wanda Sykes, I believe I'm the only person in the history of the show that can actually trace his slave ship, the routing, the actual origin from where I come from, and a name. So I'm less than 1% of African Americans that can truly connect where they come from. And just to hear that, to know that I came from somewhere, really did something to me. And what's even more amazing is that just knowing what little I knew that that my lineage was Benin, and that as I was told, his name was Charles Lewis. I'm just now learning of his his proper African name. Joycelyn shared this with me a couple of days ago. That Benin, I've basically just been on a mission for the last year and a half, soaking in any information I can get on just my history and my lineage, because it's important for me to know where I came from. I know, I often heard people do that. There's an idiom saying you don't know where you're going unless you know where you came from. But just to know that I came from somewhere really did something to me that really was a paradigm shift, changing experience. So I, at the very moment of getting involved in this project, I was ecstatic to do so, because I was hoping that I could even learn more about the residents of African Town, and I wanted to learn more about Yoruba culture and Ife and all those things that I've been denied. Like, this is, Black erasure is sort of a commonality theme that has been happening in my life for the last 2.5 years. So just to get a sense of where I came from, it's everything to me right now.
That's amazing. I'm gonna come back to each of you, but I want to pull in Kamal Siddiqui to talk to us a bit about his work and how he came to the project, because it's seminal, right? So, brothers diving. So tell us a bit of who you are, your past presidency means, and what this project, how you came to Africa Town and the Clotilda.
Yeah, thanks, Brixton. I appreciate the opportunity to be on this panel with these illustrious individuals. Yeah, it's been a phenomenal day, to say the least. But yeah, I'm a scuba diver. I'm associated with an organization called Diving with a Purpose, and one of the missions of Diving with a Purpose is to answer this question of unveiling the stories, if you will, of these vessels that was involved in the transatlantic slave trade. There was some 12,000 vessels involved in that trade. We know there was some 1,000 plus that was involved in wrecking events, but the science, quote, science, the archaeology hadn't only been done on a handful, maybe 5. And so we can discuss why that is so, but we're trying to change that narrative. And the Clotilda was part of that. And so Diving with a Purpose, or DWP as we call it, we're affiliated with another larger organization that's doing this work, the Slave Wrecks Project, that's affiliated with the National Museum of African American History and Culture, who's trying to change the whole paradigm of how we do maritime archaeology and telling these stories. So anyway, real quickly, we was called in to investigate the possibility of the discovery of the Clotilda back in March of 2018. A reporter down there by the name of Ben Raines, who have been really working on this story hard, discovered a vessel that showed itself when the river level fell. But unfortunately, that wasn't it. And so we was called back after Ben Raines did some more work and said, this might be it here. And so it happened to be it. And so I was working with an organization called Search, with DWP and some other colleagues from National Park Service. We did the work and went back to the community and say, this is it. And you saw the scene with Joyce on the phone there at that press conference, excited with the exclamation, we found the ship, we found the ship. So it's been extraordinary ever since then. And we've been engaged with the community in various sort of ways, trying to help as best we can. We have a dive program actually in the community that's trying to teach young folks how to dive. And yes, they will learn, they'll pick up those diving skills, but more so become critical thinkers, think about the world in a broader sense. And so we're looking forward to continuing that program and our work in Africa Town.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I want to back up a bit to Margaret to talk a bit about how you got connected with Amir and with Kamal. I mean, so there were a lot of folks. So the Africa Town's there, it's your hometown, but you're bringing folks back to their roots, quite literally. But also underwater and partnering there. Can you give us a sense of how the team came together?
Sure. Well, I saw Kamal speak very early on in the project and was just blown away by him and called him on the phone. And I just remember where I was sitting on my porch listening to the way he talked about his spiritual connection to the shipwrecks and just being like, if I can get this in the movie, it will add so much, and I will have succeeded to add this layer that I think is very important to the story. Because he and you know, that was a moment before he talked about justice in the film. I just think that I was just very inspired by him and just really hoped he would be part of the project. So I tracked him down in DC and then filmed him whenever he was down in Mobile. And with Amir, I did a Q&A for Summer of Soul. I think it was maybe the first movie I saw during the pandemic in a theater. Mm-hmm. And I was so blown away by it. And I'm so glad he came on after that. And you know, his team introduced us to Ray Angry, who is like doing a huge part of the composing for the film. And I think the music is so beautiful. And so it's been a real privilege to work with him as well and to get Amir's feedback. And I don't know, I'm just get very teary when I think about the team that I have of collaborators. I'm so blessed.
That's amazing. So I'm going to come back to Amir. So, Margaret mentioned your critically acclaimed documentary, Summer of Soul, which of course also sheds light on an incredible moment in Black history that was lost. Right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about what the importance, but also sort of the reward, if it can be framed that way, of uncovering and amplifying these stories?
It's something with both of these projects. I'm learning different extremes of Black erasure. Now, as Joycelyn had said at the top of this broadcast, that a lot of our people are in fear of our lives for even repeating the history, for fear of being obliterated. Now, for my movie, Summer of Soul, it's a different type of Black erasure, in which, the thing is that racism and Black erasure is very dangerous, be it a life-threatening danger or a benign veiled danger. Now, in the case of Summer of Soul, which is, for those that aren't familiar with the storyline is basically in 1969, the year that in 1969, the year that the Woodstock Festival sort of came to prominence in the world. And of course, Woodstock, the music festival that basically gives birth to so many acts who are now household names, that weren't household names before, but once they play Woodstock, they become worldwide stars. It was unbeknownst to the world that there was a Black version of Woodstock as well. It was the Harlem Cultural Festival. It happened in Harlem with Stevie Wonder, staple singers, Sly and the Family Stone, B.B. King, Nina Simone, just all the greats of the day. The Fifth Dimension, Ray Barretto, Hugh Masekela, just, every walks of life, all walks of life. And unlike Woodstock, this film was not given a chance to even see the light of day. This footage sat in a basement, unopened, unscathed for 50 plus years, until I was approached in 2017 to direct it once it finally got greenlit. And, one of my first questions was like, how easy is Black erasure, that something as brilliant, I tried making excuses. I was like, well, maybe the film's crappy. Maybe, maybe Stevie Wonder didn't have enough hits. I was trying to make excuses for Black erasure. And, the thing is that, in this particular case, even a casual scoffing, a casual dismissive attitude is just as dangerous. Like, it's basically dealing with two extremes of Black erasure. In Summer of Soul's case, it's benign racism. In this case, it's life-threatening racism. And it's to me, it's really apropos that in the time that we're living in now, in 2020, I see this as a cleansing year. I see this as a year of things coming to fruition and the truth finally literally setting us free. And it's going to be very uncomfortable, but you're hearing a whole bunch of these stories, even with the 1619 Project. Like, you're hearing all these Black stories finally unfurling because it's unstoppable. This is our history. And so, I'm proud to be associated with both.
That's beautiful. So I want to come back to Joycelyn in that. So you talk about Black erasure and the reemergence, and I think it's important to look at Barracoon and Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston as a prime example of an artist who has reemerged in the consciousness. And Barracoon is a project that previously talked about your community. Joycelyn, can you talk a bit about the importance of that book in your own journey, but also in the journey to the Clotilda being found?
Well, Barracoon is a amazing book. I think I read it like 3 or 4 times. But as a descendant and a resident of Africatown, I just want to bring up there was an author by the name of Emma Langdon Roach. She wrote a book called Historic Sketches of the South in 1914. I bring her up because she was the first to sketch 9 of those enslaved Africans and take their pictures, right? So it was because of her that I know what Charlie looks like, Oluwale. So with Zora Neale Hurston, her journey coming to Mobile and meeting Cudjo Lewis was awesome. Sitting down and talking with him, and in his dialect, and her writing his story, and it was just shameful that it wasn't published until like 80 years later. They didn't want to publish it because of his dialect. So, there are several books about Africatown. There's a book called The Slave Ship Clotilda and the Makers of Africatown by Dr. Nellie Robinson. Dreams of Africa and Alabama by Sylvia Ann Duo. It's so much literature out there for people to learn more about Africatown, and Barracoon is just one of those. It's one of the classics right now, but we have other books that people can read.
So you're obviously a scholar on this, on all things Africatown, and I'm sure well beyond. And you talked a bit about that sort of reluctant sort of embrace of the story. Can you give us a little bit of the journey from reluctant to really embraced and immersed and just such a fountain of knowledge?
Well, when I was growing up, elementary, middle, and high, none of my friends talked about being African, right? People always talked about having some type of Native American lineage, but no one was talking about being African. And I mean, it wasn't a secret that my family came from the Clotilda, that we were descendants. It's just that there was not the conversation between me and my peers about being from Africa. But growing up in Africatown, there were several people that were related to, there were descendants. We just didn't talk about it. So now we're going to try to change this narrative and, quote unquote, make it cool, bring culture, bring art, because Africatown does not resemble Africa, right? So, how can we have things for our kids in the community to embrace it? We have a community center. We call it the Hope Center. And oftentimes when I'm there for different meetings, I look at the kids and I'm like, do they really know the story? Is anyone talking to them? I mean, I can be that person, but, is anybody sitting down and telling them the story? But right as of now, they're building a museum called a Heritage House in Africatown. So that will be wonderful, because these children can actually go inside of this museum where they can see artifacts and they can read and see different things about the Clotilda. So it's up to us, the younger generation, because I'm trying to draw younger people to our organization. We want to capture younger people. I have a festival every year, second Saturday in February, where I some people call it family reunion. And we bring all the descendants together, and we collaborate. So this year, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to have a stage play on the Clotilda where the ancestors will come to life. So it's gradually coming. It's gradually coming. But my goal is to educate and bring in the younger generation.
Fantastic. We're going to try the clip one more time, because I want to get into this conversation about Africatown and Mobile today. And I hope this clip will give us a little more context. So let's hope that let's all pray to the internet gods that we can see the clip.
We've never had the opportunity to embrace our history. It's never been valued. And so this is the first instance where this one group of people can actually say where they came from. I have no idea where my African ancestors came from.
So we're not getting
but
the
this
video,
is
so
one.
the voice is still powerful. And so I want to talk a bit about sort of what the discovery of the ship does in the community. So where are things today? And we talked a little bit, Joycelyn, about the community, the work being done in the community in Africa Town. But maybe I can ask, oh, look, there's a picture. Maybe we can talk a bit about what's happening in the community. So maybe see if this will play.
With
We got
a
a little
sense
visual.
of pride that brings, the African American community, for one time, can say, this is real, this is us, these people are a part of us, we are a part of them. And we won't have to wonder anymore. Yes, this actually happened and we are validated. To me, it's the validation of the African American community.
So we got a little bit of that. So maybe Margaret and Joycelyn, we can talk a bit about where things stand today. What in broader Mobile, Margaret, is the sort of the temperature? What are the conversations that are being had or not had?
I mean, I think where the film leaves off is sort of at this sort of point of, well, the city could really get behind what's going on in Africa Town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the film kind of illustrates there's this moment where they could allow the people of Africa Town to tell their story, or the city could kind of try to harness it more for itself and for other purposes. There's also this there's a lot of environmental racism in Africa Town. I feel like the city's at this point where it kind of has to make a choice of which way to take it. I don't know how you would characterize that, Joycelyn.
Right. Gosh, it's so funny when you talk about the industry, because I always thought that, I think I mentioned it somewhere else, that I didn't know any different. I thought everybody in the neighborhood was in friends with chemical plants. You know, it was like second nature that there was a lumber yard in front of my great grandmother's driveway, or there was a chemical plant by my school. So I grew up around this. So we are gonna put the fire under the city, right? We're gonna come to the table and see what can be done for Africa Town. I think in the movie, I said that I can care less about the ship. We have always known who. I mean, it's documented, right? There is a log of who was all on the ship. So this is nothing new, but it's something about this ship that has brought everyone together. I get it, but it's about the people. So the ship, the ship is fine, but right now we just need to figure out, what can we do for the people? There are people that, dilapidated homes. There's a little problem. We need to help our feeder schools. There are so many things that the Africa Town community needs right now. Yes, these individuals can, work on the ship and everything, but right, as for me, it's the people. We have all of these, Nat Geo, Anderson Cooper, New York Times to come into town and get these stories. But when they leave, what's next for the people, for the community?
Helpful. And Amir, I'll come back to you and think about that question as well. So you've been on this journey and working with this community, where have you seen sort of glimmers and spaces to create more opportunity and to not just to shine the light, but to make a difference in people's lives there in Africa Town?
Well, yeah, that's, the second step, of course, is to sort of involve yourself in the community. I was one of those many people that only just knew of the search for the ship and heard about the place of an Africa Town or whatever. But at the time when this was revealed to me, I think back in 2017, I didn't know if it was still an active community or not. So it's only just recent that I realized that these are flesh and blood people that are still actively fighting to get their land preserved and not taken over. I mean, all too often you see and hear stories of, gentrification in the last 10 years, of which people are just obliterating stories of Black people and their history, building highways through, their communities, or in my case, up in New York City, there's, every time I turn around, there's another condominium being built where there used to be families there. And so, for me, the next logical step is sort of legislation so that this can stop, and that this doesn't just become a thing where this was once a story. And I'm certain that for the powers that be, this form of erasure is, a way to avoid the responsibility of the many lives affected in the past near 400 or 500 years of this happening. And so, for me, it's important that films projects like this and Black stories get told and get greenlit, and there's more and more to tell.
That's helpful. And Kamal, I want to come back to you and think about sort of how this story aligns with the other ships you've discovered and the other sort of histories and communities that you've touched. Can you tell us a bit about sort of where those ships have been and sort of what the stories have been that you've been able to carry forward as a result of the work you've done?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've worked on a number of vessels that's been involved in the trade, but I just want to, for a little time, I'm going to brief time here. The Clotilda is extremely unique. Out of all those vessels that's in the history books, and even as the ones that I've worked on, there's not one where you can actually see the outline of a ship. There's not one where Joycelyn and Amir can actually see the space that their ancestors were in. And so the next level, if you will, and engaging the ship scientifically would be to see if there's any traces of DNA in that hole that we can, Joycelyn and Amir can say, this is it. We can do that scientifically, but, we already got the story. Otherwise, we know exactly what that lineage is, but we need to do the science as well. So that's to help augment that story. So the Clotilda is extremely unique in that regard, and that makes the story even more powerful. The other wrecks, the Guerrero, the South Jose, Paquete, Africa, and typically these wrecks are scattered all over the place, But if you look at the sonar image, if you haven't seen them, please look at them. They're very haunting. You can see the outlines of the ship. You can see where these 110 people was in this very small space for over 3 months coming across the water. So that's profound and extraordinary.
And do you all raise the actual ship, or you do the sonar? No, just to keep the integrity.
No, these are very sacred sites, man. And so typically we try not to disturb them. You have to do the archaeology, the science on them, and gather as much information as you can in situ as they lie, right? And that's what we try to do. Sometimes you have to extract a piece of material, an artifact that can tell the story better out of the water. But in the case of the Clotilda, the wreck is very, very fragile, if you will. And to try to even raise that ship is going to cost a tremendous amount of money, a lot of zeros. So what the thinking right now is, in terms of the Alabama Historical Commission that's taking the lead on this, is to try to stabilize it, to stop some of the deterioration until all the forensics and detailed studies can be done to extract all the information from it. And once we get it stabilized, we can memorialize that site in perpetuity to continue the storyline.
And so I'm going to be gauche here. So excuse me. Where does the money come for your projects to search and to discover these wreckages?
Yeah. So again, the Alabama Historical Commission is taking the lead, and they are basically funding most of this work.
Okay. Fantastic. And Margaret, I'm going to come back to you. So we've said it, but congratulations on the Sundance of it all. Tell us a bit about what this experience has been for you. So it's not your first time at the dance, as it were, but certainly this continuation of your career and these important projects. What's this experience been for you, and what has it been like to introduce this team and this film to this community?
I mean, to be totally honest, I really wish that the Descendants could feel the Sundance love that I know this happened to Amir last year too, where his film, he probably watched it in his house or something, but it's not the same. Yeah, it's like I'm in my friend Hannah's house right now. I'm in New York because we just finished the film a few days ago, and it's just like I really wanted Joycelyn and the people of Africa Town to like feel that Sundance love, and I don't know, Joycelyn can speak to whether she felt it or not. I think the DJ set that Amir did definitely had a lot of love in it, so we're very thankful for that. But I do still think there's one really amazing thing about the virtual experience, and that is that friends of mine who live in other places that would never be able to afford to go to something like Sundance can watch a film, and that is incredible. I hope that as we move out of COVID, that part of it will continue, because I do think there is something of the magic that you get just from, you're watching a film for the first time. It's its world premiere and no one's ever seen it. It's super special. And I think that's really cool for people who can't, go to the mountain, get a lot of nosebleeds and, feel that, which, is great. But I am, the text I've been getting today from people from all over who got to see the film who have never gone. That's pretty amazing too.
It is. And Joycelyn, are you feeling the Sundance love, or what's been the sentiment from your perspective?
Oh, wow. Well, when I got the news that I was not coming to Utah, I was really bummed out. I'm still bummed out. But, Margaret called me. She was like, look, we're going to find a silver lining. There will be other screenings and, we'll be able to do other things. But I mean, I am so over Zoom and virtual things. And I get it that, it's broader and people who, couldn't afford it could see it now. But I am so over this right now. I need some type of connection. I want to see Kamal. I want to see Margaret. I want to meet Amir, which I knew when I saw Finding Your Roots with Amir. I said to myself then, I was like, I'm going to meet him. I don't know how, but I'm going to meet him. So it's been great. That's the silver lining that Margaret, she had to counsel me about. So this has been great. My life has changed forever now. I do believe, but and I want to go back to the ship. One thing I will say that it is profound that it is the last documented slave ship in U.S. history. So that is something that I will somewhat take pride in, that it is the last documented slave ship.
That's amazing.
Joycelyn, we got to get you to Benin. I just dropped that in there.
Well, since you said that, since you put that in the atmosphere and the universe, and the ancestors just heard that, it's gonna happen.
Absolutely.
I do believe that.
That's fantastic.
Don't forget me.
Yeah, Amir.
Let's go together.
I can assure you that
yes.
the climate is the weather is much more hospitable than Park City. No competition there. And Margaret, can you tell us a bit about participants' involvement in the project?
Well, Diane Wireman, who I did another film with, who she passed away in October, and she I brought the film to her, and I'd worked with her on another film about the BP oil spill, and also something about my hometown, and yeah, it just came in through Diane, and I'm just very sad that she did not live to see this premiere, because she was wonderful and shepherded and worked creatively and passionately on so many documentaries. And yeah, I hope she's watching this from somewhere.
Amen. That's lovely. And maybe I'll as we begin to wind down, I'd love to hear from each of you all, both what you hope audience members will do as a result of seeing this film. So, often the question is, how do you think they'll feel? What do you think they'll say? But what do you hope folks will do? What's the call to action for this film? And then I'll come to my final question once we go there. But maybe I'll start with Kamal. What do you hope folks will do?
Yeah, thank you, Brixton. This is such a powerful story, and the injustice is so blatant. Not just the initial injustice of capturing these Africans and enslaving them. We were never slave, but enslaved, enslaving them. But the injustice continued for the next 160 years, right? And so the critical piece for me, and I kind of alluded to it in the movie, is that how do we get to the point of really reconciling this tremendous, blatant injustice? You know, you got the economic injustice, you got the environmental injustice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, that needs to be reconciled in some way. And how do we go about it? This conversation is still going on, but we need to restore that balance, that sense of justice there. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Amir, what do you hope audiences will do?
You know, I hope that this story and the truth enlightens and spreads, and to let people know that erasure is real. You know, earlier when I said about March of 2020 being a paradigm shift and being a sort of change, and the fact that our stories can't be denied anymore. So for me, for one, I would like to stop telling the story. I've been telling the story nonstop to many in a gape, surprised, shocked person, and usually the results of surprise is sort of like, "Whoa, I never knew that happened before," or "That's so horrible." And once we get past that place and really just accept, the fact that our stories have been held back, and there's many more out there like this, then that's when we can finally get to a healing place. So just for now, I feel like this is the first pebble that will cause a ripple effect around the world that will let people know of how important this story is for Africans and African Americans around the world.
Thank you. And Joycelyn, maybe I'll come to you next to talk about what you hope members will do, but also what we can do as you all work in Africatown and there in Mobile.
Well, what I want the audience to come away with, I want everyone to become familiar with the complete story of Africatown from the beginning on up until now. I want people to be familiar with my ancestor, Charlie Oluwale, and Maggie Lewis, Goomba, Kibi, and there were so many others that came that were on the Clotilda. I want people to be familiar with, just becoming familiar with the story. If you read those books, you'll come away with a lot, because you'll see documentaries, but it doesn't tell everything about the story. So just become more knowledgeable of it and get the full story of how everything actually happened. And visit our website, www.theclotildastory.com, and that's the way you can connect with the descendants. If you guys want to, if they want to connect with us, that would be great. So that's one of my takeaways, is that everybody just become familiar with the complete story of the Clotilda and the makings of Africatown, and also read about, and we want the American land away, or they can sell their land to the people in Africatown. We want them out of Africatown. Their stronghold is still in the area to this day. After 160 years, their presence is still known, although it's through those concrete markers that are spray painted in red. I don't want to see that anymore. I see that every day on my commute back and forth home, and I don't want to see it anymore. So if we can just get the Mayer family out of Africa Town. That's one step.
Thank you. Thank you. And Margaret, what's your call to action for folks who see the film?
I mean, I love everything everyone else just said, but one thing I would add is that Anderson Flynn, another community leader who's featured in the film, there's a part in the film where he goes to EJI in Montgomery, and he says all these people are here at this museum, and but what will they do when they leave? You know, and you know, I made the film to be part of a conversation about what's going on in this country right now and how it just goes back 160 years, and at least in terms of my hometown and this community, and you know, I just hope this can. I think these things can be hard to talk about for some people, and maybe if there's a movie and you watch the movie, there's like a way to start to talk about it, you know. Yeah, but when he said, "What do you do when you leave?" That to me is like, yeah, you can watch something and be moved by it, or read a book, but then what is your action? Think about what your action is. And so I guess that's it's not like I would be prescriptive about it. I like what Joycelyn said. I like, you know, talk to them, but I hope it starts a conversation in the film.
That's beautiful. And what's next for the film? So more screenings at Sundance, and what's the hope and dream for the film?
I mean, the hope and dream would be to get distribution and for more people to see it. And it is screening one more time at Sundance on, I think, sort of really early in the morning on Monday.
Okay.
I wish I knew the exact time, but it's
We'll
on the
post it.
website. So,
And we'll post it on our site as well.
okay, cool.
No, so congratulations to all of you in terms of the connectivity that brought you all together, for the incredible story that you all have unsurfaced and rendered so beautifully on the screen. We hope that folks will get up early and see the film. It's certainly worth the early rising, and in some time zones it won't even be that early. But we are thankful to Participant for bringing you all to the Black House. Hope to see you all in person before too long, and we're all inspired by your work. Amir and the self-discovery and the connection to this story and this film. Kamal for bringing the ship into discovery, and for Joycelyn for your constant work in Africa Town and connecting to your heritage, your predecessors, and of course to Margaret for the dedication in your hometown of unsurfacing this really important story and these tensions, and giving us a chance to think about more than 100 years of sort of bad actions that can lead to some good, we hope, in the very near future. So I thank you all for joining us. I thank the audience, and we wish you all a happy 2022 Sundance, and as they say, many happy returns, and we'll cross our fingers for the next one is in person. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Be safe.
Be well. Thank you.
Yeah, good night, everyone.
Good night, y'all.